Hi, everybody. So I wasn't really sure whether to do a transit video today. Last week when I was speaking about the crutches, and I did weave in the transit. I felt like I had more interaction. So I was wondering if actually it is more valuable to just speak about our own experience and where we're at and recognize things in each other than actually maybe speak about the transits. And at the same time, there is something for me really valuable with the transits, because when there are intense energies like we're going through right now, and maybe we're even struggling, it can be so helpful to know that there are planets and there are aspects that are affecting us or influencing us, and understand that this energy is something that comes from the outside, and that we are here to feel and to work with. And the fact that we have the sun transiting the gates for 6 days is also really good, because kind of we have this contemplation theme for a week almost, each time. And also when we learn, it's such a good way to learn about the gates or hexagrams or gene keys, by having the sun activating one gate at a time and being able to feel the energies at the same time as we go through that actual hexagram. Because then we have this kind of embodied learning. We feel the energies at the same time as we are like learning about them theoretically. We also feel them inside our being and inside our doing. So that is why I still kind of want to hang on a bit and speak about the transits, and make us understand that they are there, and everything, there's a resonance between us as human being, like human bodies, and then the planetary bodies. And that's even, the very basis of human design and the gene keys, that we see that there is this resonance, this geometry between the planetary bodies and us here on this planet. So I do still want to push a little bit for the transits. So this week we are in Gene Key 56. So distraction, enrichment, and intoxication. And I kind of love this word intoxication as a city, because I feel like, yeah, that highest, love is the highest intoxication. I think that was something I posted a couple of days ago on my story on Facebook, because it's really beautiful, and really just it just feels like what better than to be intoxicated by love, right? And then I feel also that the shadow is really important. Distraction. I feel like we're really in the era of distraction. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up when it comes to distractions. And one is actually, it might feel it's a little bit far-fetched, but I think it's very common right now, and I wanted to bring that up because I feel like when it comes to emotional processing and relationships today, that very, very often what we do in relationships in this time is that we think that everything, we are supposed to be able to say everything. We're supposed to be able to say exactly how we feel and to tell the truth, and to be like kind of, really be able to do that. And things that maybe before, when it was more conservative, we would hold for ourselves, now it's like this kind of trend almost to kind of spit it out and to our partner, or even on Facebook. And it's like there's something with it that for me, it's not, first of all, it's not really to take something in and let it be on the inside, and let it work on the inside, and let it process on the inside and assimilate it. And maybe there is a kind of alchemy, and maybe after that there is an essence that can come out and be shared. And then in the sharing, there can be much more sharing from the heart than just like kind of spontaneous feedback from the sacral chakra that does kind of just like vomits it out sometimes. And for me, when in relationships, there is a lot of that kind of emotional processing between partners, or maybe one partner expecting the other partners to be there to listen. For me, that is not like the highest care, first of all. And there's also a lot of distraction in having to voice everything, in order to, or like wanting to be able to say everything in order to feel emptied out. And there's something in there that for me it links into immaturity. And what we were speaking about last week, about not taking responsibility for our own part, but actually wanting to put it on the other, and wanting the other to kind of fix it in some way, or take off the weight or the despair that we have. And for how I see it, that can create even more distraction, and even more feeling lost, actually, and even more weight on the relationship, when this is something that we can take responsibility for first. And then once we have done our own process, it's beautiful because we can share from a higher frequency and from the heart. And yeah, I would love to have comments on that for sure. And then the other thing that is more evident is about technology, for example, that many times when we again feel this emotional, that we are kind of, there is an agitation or there's something emotional that we don't really want to feel, or it can also be boredom, we don't feel anything, then how easy it is to just take the phone and scroll on Facebook. And I'm thinking sometimes, we're also tricky how we can tell ourselves. I think that when I respond to comments and stuff on Facebook, I feel like I'm a generator and I'm just responding, and it's so natural, it's like intuitive. So I think it's my design, and it's what I'm here to do. And maybe in that moment, what would be more enriching for me, which is the gift frequency, would be to maybe just turn off my computer and just sit still. And there are so many things, even the fact that we have Netflix, for example, on the telephone now, in the mobile plans, many of them are like, free TV, or these many gigabytes to watch streamed videos and things like that. So it's so easy to be all the time be stimulated. And in human design, we call this the gate of stimulation, and it's a throat gate. So it's like an expression that stimulates others, and that actually only survives, you could say, if it can stimulate others. By itself, it doesn't really exist. So there is all the time this, the feedback from stimulation, and the stimulation of the senses. So that's also part of the distractions, is that all our senses are engaged in that. And there is the dilemma, is the pain and the pleasure cycle. So we go into something because we want to go away, for example, from pain. So we seek pleasure, but then it's this cycle, because it's not not true enrichment. It's this cycle of seeking, where we're hungry for something. So we try to get it, but it's not the true enrichment. So then it kind of just switch back and goes around in that way. And I feel like the senses is also, it's not only to be lost in the senses and be distracted through the senses. I feel like the senses also a really beautiful bridge into the gift frequency, because many of us, we're very visual. So I would say that the visual, the sense of seeing is the one that is kind of a bit overstimulated now, which is the reactive pattern, actually, of the gene key. So when we have so much stimuli, like everything we see and take in through the visual, and also everything we judge through the visual, it makes the other senses kind of, a bit numb, because we use this seeing and discerning and judging so much. So we kind of might have forgotten. And we know that the first sense is touch. When we are when we are still in the mom's belly, we are in water. So we are all the time like flowing in water, and that's like what's on our skin. So that's the very first sense before we can see and hear, and any of the other senses are developed when we are not born yet. And this is something that we can see in the world today, and there are studies as well with oxytocin and with children that don't get enough touch, and how that affects their emotional development. So this thing about the touch is something that many times in the society today, we were running around a lot, that there is not enough time for touch. And even, in our intimacy, in our sexuality, sometimes there is a lot of kind of sexual touch, but not so much nurturing touch, which is the touch that we had when we were, even before we were born, and that the human being needs so much, and that we can measure with those signal substances as oxytocin, and also like connected to serotonin levels and all that comes from the nurturing touch of the skin, that is not a sexual touch. And also thinking about our intimacy and how we can include that is something that it's gonna take us up and be a kind of gateway to enrichment through our sexuality, through our intimate relationships. um, and the senses in not only touch but also taste. How do we eat? When we have a bar of chocolate, do we even like have time to think about how it tastes and about the structure of it in the mouth, and also the sound. Sometimes I do meditations by the sea, and just that rhythmic sound of the sea, the water, the waves. It's something that also sometimes I'm like, there's so much noise, but I don't enrich myself through the senses. Or when you are in the jungle in Costa Rica, for example, there's so many sounds of all the birds and all the animals, and then you get enriched through the sound and not just distracted through sound. So using the senses to come back to essence, to come back to what we remember from the beginning, and to enrich ourselves through that, and to come back to what's real, to come back to what it is to be human, before all these other more superficial distractions come in and take our awareness, and fill up our field of attention, you could say. um, and maybe for the highest frequency, it's not so much we can say about the city, I feel like often. But again, coming back to what I said in the beginning, the highest intoxication is love. It's really the thing that can really make us drop a lot of the other distraction and the pleasure pain cycle that doesn't keep us in that cycle. Love, it's not something that you can get too much of, or something that you fall out of. Really, you kind of fall in it, and then we want to stay there. And love can be so many things, but how can we enrich each other by acting, vibrating with a love, in a love vibration? And how can we have that, how can we be contagious with that? Because intoxication comes from that. Like we can have that aim to be so enriched in ourselves, so that it flows over and it starts to kind of be contagious with others. And that's really the kind of stimuli, again, because this is the gate of stimulation. That's what we want to stimulate in the other. And I'm not sure if we should take a little bit of a look at the transits. I can just say that right now in Mercury, we also have the gate of stimulation. So Mercury right now is in 56, line 1. So Mercury is about communication, right? About how we analyze things, how we think about things. So even here, we have the theme in our interaction, in our communication, about this kind of stimulation, but also that can be distraction. And I would say, the fact that I can see that in myself, the fact of like speaking fast, that everything is there to be fast, and that is also something. So coming back again to the art of contemplations, to the slowing down, and sometimes the biggest enrichment is the pause that we can put in things. So this is something that I'm going to take as homework this week, to really speak slower and maybe not have a response that fast, because I always naturally have a response really, really fast. And see where I can slow down and not listen to the astrological report on YouTube and do the speed times 2. I'll promise to take a week and not do that, and see what shifts, and see what parts of me get enriched in new ways. So I would love to hear if you guys are doing something similar, what you are experimenting with. And thank you.